It's beat making time. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and time for a review. The Flaming Lips and Heady Fwends. The Flaming Lips are a psychedelic rock band with plenty critic and fan acclaimed albums under their belt. They're a band that's kind of built a reputation on making music that is in a lot of ways fun, very colorful, sometimes very accessible and catchy, especially in the case of The Soft Bulletin or Yoshimi Battles the Robots. But the band is also wildly experimental. Now, while most bands tend to kind of settle into a sound or an idea or a style in their old age, the Flaming Lips are doing the exact opposite after about 30 years of making music together. Instead of trying to maintain their career by being as predictable as possible to their fans, they are embarking on all of these strange projects that make me wonder whether or not any of them are suffering from the beginning stages of early onset dementia. Ever since the release of Embryonic, great album by the way, Wayne Coyne and the band has just been focused on not really putting out full-length studio LPs, but just doing things I'm not sure they would be able to sustain if it were not for the fact they have so many great albums, celebrated albums in their back catalog, like an album-length cover of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, these short collaborative releases including artists like Neon Indian, Lightning Bolt, Yoko Ono and the Plastic Ono Band, and a 24-hour song encased in a mini hard drive encased in a gummy candy skull. But out of all the band's latest exploits, this, The Flaming Lips and Heady Fwends, is the most sort of approachable, somewhat accessible, and album-like thing that they have released. But it hasn't really been garnering that much attention outside of hardcore fans for several reasons. In a way, it's sort of a compilation featuring tracks from these previously released collaborative EPs, if you want to call them that featured artists that I mentioned earlier. And this thing was pretty much a vinyl-only record store day release, which, from what I understand, is sold out right now. So good luck getting a copy. Plus, I'm sure some of the collaborators on here, just the sheer number of them, might have intimidated some fans, not only because of who they are, but because of how an album like this might be perceived. Oh, it's filler, it's just a bunch of crummy songs. Why would the Flaming Lips have this person on this record? And how did they even get this person to agree to be on this album and perform to their specifications in this given track? Lots of guests on this album raise those questions, not just a few. Biz Markie, Kesha, Erykah Badu, Chris Martin of Coldplay. Essentially, this album is 13 tracks with a handful of interludes, and each song has its own little special musical guest. And like I said, some tracks on here have been previously released, but others are entirely new. But Flaming Lips really structured this album to flow as a very cohesive project, and all the guests on this thing appear on these tracks in a very Gorillaz album style capacity where they kind of play an actor role, and the Flaming Lips are doing their best to direct this person through the madness they have written. And overall, I think they do a great job of that, because there's not one single song on this album where I feel like the star power or the image of the guest taking part on the track overpowers the song itself. Believe it or not, I think Kesha is actually fantastic on the opener. She adds a really kind of dark and sinister vibe to an already dark and sinister song, 2012, where the lyrics are kind of about becoming obsolete and maybe the world coming to an end. The track just seems so apocalyptic, especially considering how noisy it is. Just these guitars just sound so freaking distorted and abrasive. I really would not recommend turning this album up too loud, because to me, just the guitar sounds, especially on this opening track, are like razor blades getting shoved directly into your ear canals. But the groove and the melody and the hook on the song are just kind of so fun and catchy, I can't say no, despite the very slight pain. There's this very jungle, primal garage rock beat to the song, and these very kind of psychedelic whizzing by in a very colorful way. The Bon Iver track right after this one I thought was great too. I loved the muddy drum beat on the song, how it felt so obscured, and just the very airy atmosphere of synthesizers that are slightly distorted too, kind of just coloring everything surrounding the lyrics and the song itself. And Bon Iver, of course, is locked in the background, kind of vocalizing in a very slightly auto-tuned kind of way, and I like the emotion that he adds to this track, kind of about a romantic relationship where one person is fucked up and so is the other person, but one person just happens to be fucked up in a good way while the other in a bad way. The track Helping the Retarded to Find God, featuring Edward Sharpe, I thought was okay. I didn't really feel like the song itself, in terms of the chord progression or the melody or anything like that, was all that unique. The sounds surrounding the track were certainly strange, certainly quirky, but the tune didn't really hit me as being all that fantastic, I guess. I kind of felt the same way about the Tame Impala track on this album, and while I am pissing and moaning, the Yoko Ono track to me felt a little too repetitive, and the Erykah Badu track, though very beautiful and pretty with her vocalizing in this very distorted sea of ambience, is a little daunting at 10 minutes in length. But really, those are my only issues with this album. The track Supermoon Made Me Pee, featuring Preview 73, is really awesome in how it builds up in this very intense way. There are these shakers kind of splashed with a nice touch of reverb, buzzing guitars and synths, lo-fi drums kind of playing this very fast roll. And I love how everything is so obscured by this lo-fi and grainy recording, and yet it is so just enthralling and exciting and colorful. The track That Ain't My Trip with Jim James from My Morning Jacket is heavy and just kaleidoscopic with color, and the lyrics are hilarious. Right at the first line, he's singing about this person who he is singing to wanting to shave his balls, but that ain't his trip. I love Nick Cave's madman style rant on the song You Man Human. He just comes off so intense and attention demanding, as usual. It's to be expected from the guy. And the lightning bolt feature on the track I'm Working at NASA on Acid has a very nice David Bowie Space Oddity-esque intro where it's kind of folky, kind of psychedelic, very spacious and dramatic. But then lightning bolt kind of interjects right in the middle to build things up to this really epic explosion. The track becomes hectic and pummeling just as it sort of fizzles out, the same way it kind of started. The track Is David Bowie Dying, which features Neon Indie and has this heavy guitar on it that twangs and echoes like something out of a spaghetti western. It's kind of like tripping on acid in the middle of the desert. And the track Girl You Are So Weird with New Fumes is, I think, one of the most fun songs on here. I love the way the keyboards kind of dip in and out of tempo on the verse, but then when the chorus comes around, everything tightens up and just explodes in a really aggressive way. And the final track on here with Chris Martin is actually kind of hauntingly beautiful. His voice sounds so just pitch perfect, angelic, I would say. Sort of reminds me of something off of that first Perfume Genius record. Overall, I thought this thing was a really great listen. I know the other collaborative releases that Flaming Lips put out recently did not go over too well, but taking all of these songs, released and unreleased, and placing them together on one album has made all of them really, really potent, I think. You don't really get an opportunity to have a dream fantasy of what you think a Flaming Lips collaboration with a certain artist should sound like. So it's definitely easier to go into this album without any kind of preconceived notions and just sort of enjoy it for what it is. There are lots of variety among these tracks, tons of highs and lows, beauties and uglies, and everything in between. But kind of feeling a strong, I wish time machines existed so that I could go back in time and force myself to buy this on vinyl like I should have on Record Store Day What do you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? Was it surprisingly consistent considering the sheer amount of guests and varying musical minds on this LP? To you, let me know. Anthony Fantano, The Flaming Lips, Heady Fwends, forever.